The story of Jericho, the fall of the walls. After many years of wandering in the desert, the Israelites, led by Joshua, were finally about to enter the promised land. The first city they needed to conquer was Jericho, a city with strong, thick walls. The people of Jericho had heard about the miracles that God had done for the Israelites and were afraid, but they were determined to protect their city. Before the battle, Joshua sent 2 spies into Jericho. They were helped by Rahab, a woman who hid them from the king's soldiers. Rahab knew the Israelites would conquer Jericho and asked them to protect her family. The spies promised to keep her safe. God then spoke to Joshua, giving him instructions on how to defeat Jericho. Joshua and the Israelites were to march around the city once each day for 6 days. On the 7th day, they were to march around the city 7 times, and the priests would blow trumpets. On that 7th day, when the people shouted, the walls of Jericho would fall down. The Israelites followed God's instructions. For 6 days, they marched around the city once a day, quietly, with the priests blowing trumpets. The people of Jericho watched, unsure of what was happening. On the 7th day, they marched around the city 7 times. When the trumpets sounded, Joshua told the people to shout. They did, and the walls of Jericho collapsed, just as God had promised. Before the attack, the spies had promised Rahab that they would protect her and her family. They told her to tie a scarlet cord in her window as a sign for the Israelites to spare her house. Rahab and her family were safely taken out of the city, and they joined the Israelite community. The Israelites destroyed Jericho, burning the city and everything in it, as God had commanded. Joshua declared a curse on anyone who would try to rebuild the city. Joshua's obedience to God's instructions showed his faith. The victory was not due to the Israelites' strength, but because of God's power and faithfulness to his promises.
The story of Moses and the Israelites, from the palace to the Exodus. In the land of Egypt, the Israelites had been living as slaves for many years. The Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, was worried that the Israelites were growing too numerous and strong. He ordered that all the male babies born to the Israelites be killed. But there was one woman named Jochebed who had a baby boy, and she wanted to protect him. She placed her baby in a basket and set it afloat on the Nile River. The basket was discovered by Pharaoh's daughter, who was bathing in the river. She took the baby and decided to raise him as her own, naming him Moses. Moses grew up in the palace as a prince, surrounded by luxury and wealth, but he knew he was an Israelite. As Moses grew older, he saw the suffering of his people. One day, he saw an Egyptian soldier beating an Israelite slave, and in anger, Moses killed the Egyptian. Fearing for his life, Moses fled to the land of Midian. There, he settled and became a shepherd. One day, while tending his sheep near Mount Horeb, Moses saw something amazing. A bush was on fire, but it wasn't burning up. Curious, he approached, and God spoke to him from the bush. God told Moses that he had seen the suffering of the Israelites and that Moses was chosen to lead them out of Egypt. Moses was reluctant, but God promised to be with him. God also gave Moses a sign. He told him that when he brought the Israelites out of Egypt, they would worship God on that very mountain. Moses returned to Egypt and went to see Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. He told Pharaoh that God had sent him to demand that Pharaoh let the Israelites go. Pharaoh refused, and God sent 10 plagues upon Egypt. The first plague turned the waters of the Nile into blood. The second plague brought frogs, the third brought gnats, and the plagues continued until Egypt was in great suffering. The final plague was the worst. God told Moses that he would send the angel of death to strike down the firstborn sons of the Egyptians. But he also instructed the Israelites to mark their doorposts with the blood of a lamb so that the angel of death would pass over their houses. This event became known as the Passover. That night, Pharaoh's firstborn son died, and Pharaoh finally agreed to let the Israelites go. Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, and they began their journey to the Promised Land. As the Israelites journeyed, Pharaoh changed his mind and sent his army to chase them. They reached the Red Sea, and the Israelites were trapped. But God told Moses to stretch out his staff, and when he did, the waters of the Red Sea parted, allowing the Israelites to walk through on dry land. When the Egyptian army followed, the waters returned, drowning the soldiers. After their escape from Egypt, the Israelites wandered in the desert for many years. During this time, Moses led them with the help of God. God provided food for them in the form of manna, bread from heaven, and water from a rock. At Mount Sinai, Moses received the 10 Commandments from God, which were the laws for the Israelites to follow. The Israelites built a tabernacle, a special tent for God's presence to dwell among them. Though the Israelites often complained and doubted, God continued to guide them, and they eventually reached the borders of the Promised Land. Moses, however, was not allowed to enter, and he passed leadership to Joshua before he died.